On 26 September 2002, a ferry capsized on the way to Dakar, the Senegalese capital, after running into a violent storm. 1,863 people died, making it the second worst non-military disaster in maritime history. In the history of the world, whenever there is a conversation about sea tragedies that took thousands of lives, the very first example that comes to mind is the Titanic. This is because of how the accident was reported, how the victims have been remembered, and how lawsuits were settled. The accident of the Joola took more lives than the Titanic. It won't be surprising if you've never heard of the Joola, because it has been sidelined in the depth of history, buried so deep that it has been difficult to surface. Families are still in pain. No clear prosecutions have been made, and investigations were quickly closed in less than a year of its occurrence. This is a tragic story of the Joola, the ship that was deadlier than the Titanic. My name is Bernard, and this is African Dream Motivation. Let's begin. The Joola was one of the few ships you will see operational in the coast of Africa during the early 90s. It was named after the Joola people of southern Senegal, constructed in Germany and delivered to Senegal in 1990. It was 79 meters long and 12 meters wide. It was, however, equipped with some of the latest safety equipment available in the late 1990s and early 2000s. It traveled from Dakar, which is the capital and largest city of Senegal, to Casamance, an area in Senegal south of the Gambia. During its prime years, the ship traveled twice a week and often carried women who sold mangoes and palm oil in Dakar. It was managed by the Senegalese Navy, who had much experience in sea navigation and maintenance of a ferry that huge. By 2001, the ship was out of shape due to poor maintenance and supervision. This caused the ship to be out of service for almost a year. It was undergoing serious repairs, which included the replacement of the port's engine. Getting to the end of 2002, the Joola was back on the sea, ready to go on its usual trips. A new day had come, and the travelers were excited to go on another journey once again on the ferry. Thousands of people trooped in to get tickets, but many people had to return home or either use the road, which was considered expensive. The ship was sold out with passengers from more than 12 countries on board. The Joola was on a journey from Ziguinchor in the Casamance region to the Senegalese capital Dakar. This was a journey it had flawlessly covered for years. The demand had exceeded the supply, but the managers of the ship decided to ignore its capacity requirements and prioritize profitability as usual. The ship was designed to carry a maximum of 580 passengers and crew. In reality, an estimated 1,927 passengers were believed to have been on board. Some Senegalese organizations even believe that there were more than 2,000 people on the boat. All these point to the fact that the ship was overloaded. Some other investigations later revealed that only 1,034 travelers held tickets, while the rest of the passengers were either not required to hold tickets or may have been permitted to travel for free. Whatever case it was, the ship was ready to move. They set off at exactly 1:30 p.m. and everything was going according to plan. The ship had been built in such a way that feedback was frequently given to Maritime Security Center in Dakar to monitor the journey. The last report received by the Security Center was at 10 p.m. reporting good sailing conditions. At around 11 p.m., the ship sailed into a storm off the coast of Gambia. This is where the tragedy began unraveling. The sea was rough and the wind was so strong that the ship couldn't contain it anymore. Within just 5 minutes, the ferry capsized, leaving thousands of people to fight for their lives. It happened so fast that many passengers died trapped in the sinking boat. It was so sad that a greater number of people escaped the ship after it capsized, only to drown while waiting for rescue. The rescue team did not arrive at the scene until the morning following the incident. Their fate was in their own hands, and it was not about survival of the fittest anymore. But at that moment, it would only take a miracle to live to see the sun the next day. A few of them were lucky to have been found by some fishermen who were able to rescue some survivors from the sea. The local fishermen who came with their canoes did everything possible, but were only able to save a few people. Among the few people they saved was a 15-year-old boy whom they rescued at 2 a.m. He confirmed that there were still many people trapped alive inside the ship and were screaming very loud. The Joola remained capsized until 3 a.m. when it completely sank, gradually lowering down to the depth of the sea, together with those who were unable to get out of the ship. In all, only 64 passengers survived while the remaining 1,863 died. There were more than 600 women on board, but only one woman survived, and she was pregnant. Also, Senegalese and England's Birmingham City player Aliou Cissé lost 12 members of his family to the accident. Birmingham City Football Club displays a large Senegalese flag to remember the midfielder's family during their match against Manchester City. This was a traumatic occurrence that could have been prevented and should have. Since the accident occurred, there have been many conspiracy theories trying to deduce the causes of the tragedy. The magnitude of lives lost called for international attention. An explanation was demanded from the government. The Senegalese government established an inquiry to investigate the situation. 12 French nationals also died, forcing the hand of the French government to launch an investigation through the courts. After some few days, so many findings were uncovered and accusations began. The ultimate one, which has been hammered over and over again, was the negligence of the government and the Senegalese Navy. When we talk about negligence here, firstly, the boat was built only to be sailed in coastal waters, but it was sailing beyond its coastal limit when it capsized. Secondly, it was built to house only 580 passengers and crew, but when the accident occurred, there were almost 2,000 people on board, and this demonstrates recklessness to the highest level. The act of taking more passengers more than the ship was built for was a major cause to its capsizing. Also, it was revealed that there was so much heat and unbearable conditions below deck. Therefore, many passengers tried so hard to move and sleep on the upper level, making the ship more unstable. Finally, this was a ship which was just 12 years old and was built to be in service for at least 30 years. Even though it was still young, it had serious technical problems. This was why it was temporarily retired the year before the accident. After the incident, the bodies of many of the victims were never found. And due to the large number of unticketed passengers on board, it is very difficult to know the exact number of victims, but at least 1,863 people died. Among the dead, 61.6% were male, 34.9% were female, and the remaining 3.6% were unidentified due to how long their bodies had stayed in the water. In all, the dead included nationals from 11 countries in Africa, Asia, Europe, and America. On 28 September 2002, environmental activist Haider El Ali and his diving team explored the disaster area. They saw no survivors, but many bodies of men, women, and children were still inside the ship. 300 corpses were brought ashore. Another 100 that were around the ship were also recovered. In all, 551 corpses were brought out by the diving team. Only 95 of them were identifiable and handed over to their families for burial. The remaining bodies were put to rest in specially constructed cemeteries in Kabadil and on Gambia coast. National funerals were held on 11 October 2002 at the Esplanade du Souvenir in Dakar. Even though thousands of lives have been lost and the pain can never be replaced in any way, justice, proper reparations, and memorials can go a long way to comfort the bereaved. At this moment, the public outcry was that somebody needed to be held accountable for the negligence, and something had to be done quickly to prevent an escalation of anger. The government of Senegal charged officials with failure to respond quickly enough to the disaster. This included high-ranking members of the armed forces of Senegal who were moved to other posts, making it impossible for the rescue to be done on time. Prime Minister Mamadi Boye was dismissed by President Abdoulaye Wade. All these were seen as a political mind game because not even a single person was prosecuted, and the official report was quickly closed after a year. No investigation continued. It even became a campaign message for election when the opposition accused President Abdoulaye Wade of covering up their responsibilities for the disaster. Families of victims were greatly outraged, and some were unwilling to accept the 2003 reparation packages. A few of these people pursued the Senegalese government and authorities in French courts. On Friday 12 September 2008, French judge Jean-Wilfred Noël handed down an indictment of 9 Senegalese officials, including the former Prime Minister and the former Chief of Staff. Senegalese officials responded to this indictment by issuing an arrest warrant for French judge Jean-Wilfred Noël whenever he returns to Senegal. It was indeed a difficult time with so much trauma for the nation of Senegal and many other countries. This was a disaster that claimed more lives than the Titanic. In fact, the sinking of the Joola is the second worst non-military maritime disaster in the world, while the Titanic comes third, according to World Almanac. When you hear about the Titanic, you realize how a great tragedy befell thousands of people at 2:20 a.m. on April 15, 1912 in the North Atlantic Ocean about 400 miles south of Newfoundland, Canada. In the same way, the tragedy of the Joola need not to be sunk in history but remembered. Remember the 63 survivors, including the 4-month pregnant Mariama Diop, who happened to be the only surviving female. Remember the thousands of people who faced their untimely death off the coast of Gambia on 26 September 2002. Remember the MV Joola. Thank you for making it to the end of this video. This has been Bernard and you've been watching African Dream Motivation. Kindly subscribe for more.